Hi everyone, welcome to Sage's Garage. Today we're at the Last Chance Garage, which is my friend and neighbor Dante's house, and we are working on my parents' Range Rover. We wanted to replace the brake pads, so that is what we're going to do today. Dante has a really great setup, and he was kind enough to let us use his hoist and also lend a set of helping hands. We started off by lowering the suspension on the car so that it would be lower to the ground, and that way it would be easier to raise it off of the ground using the hoist. However, if you stay to watch until the very end of this video, you will see some insane things that happened regarding the suspension, and it definitely did not end up well. That's all I will say. The Range Rover's lug nuts were actually bloated, and so my dad ended up purchasing a bunch of new ones. Here we only had a couple, but we ended up getting the whole lot. Today's plan was to change the brake pads. To start off, I needed to get the stuck lug nuts off. To do that, I started by putting a socket on and then used a breaker bar to try and loosen it. But unfortunately, I didn't have any luck with that, so I attached a Johnson bar, which is basically any pipe that can be attached over a breaker bar in order to lengthen it and then add leverage. So that's what I did. I added one to add leverage, but I still wasn't able to get it loose. As you can see, I was really struggling, and so I actually ended up adding a second Johnson bar, and then I had some success and I was able to get it loose. There are 6-sided sockets and 12-sided sockets, and some people have trouble with the 12-sided ones because they're not as tight, and then the nut can actually slip because there's not as much grip and it can get stuck in a bad position, and then it's difficult to separate them. So I'm not sure which one I used on this one, but it ended up working out. Once I got the lug nut off, it was then stuck in the socket, so I put them in a bench vise and then knocked the lug nut out with a drift pin. I had lots of people comment and tell me I should get some power tools, so I decided it was finally time to use one. I used an air impact wrench and attached it to the socket. I was then able to easily remove the lug nuts. However, one was really stuck, so we actually had to loosen it by hand first, so I went ahead and did that with all of the remaining lug nuts, and then I used the impact wrench to take them all off all the way. Left the last lug nut on the wheel so that once you raise the suspension, the tire wouldn't fall off on us, and we raised the suspension so that the tire would be fully off the ground. Once we raised the car, I was able to take off the last lug nut, and then I took off the wheel and rolled it away. Now all the parts we need to get to are exposed. I started by removing the brake caliper. To do that, I used a ratchet wrench, but the nut and bolt were spinning together, so I actually had to use an open-ended wrench to hold the nut still so I could remove the bolt. Then we used a flathead screwdriver to pry off the caliper. Once we did that, we found this really suspicious and mysterious wire, and we kind of followed it to see where it went, but we could tell that it was broken. And later on, a while later, we ended up finding out that it was actually the brake pad sensor, but it was completely broken, so we removed it from both sides of the car. This is what the brake pads looked like, and clearly why we needed to change them. To remove them, we just hammered them off with a flathead screwdriver, and then we took off the pad retainer as well. I think it's also known as a clip sometimes. We then removed the caliper carrier, which I think is also known as a bracket sometimes. But to do that, we actually used a closed-ended wrench, and then we attached another one on for leverage so that we were able to get the bolts loosened. We then clamped the caliper carrier onto the bench vise so that it could be cleaned up, and we used a wire brush and a metal file. It's really important that all the connecting surfaces are clean and flat so that they can properly go together and that there's no issues. We also used the wire brush to clean off the pad retainer, and then we used a wire wheel to clean off the caliper carrier a bit more. Here is what the brake pad sensor looked like after we removed it. The next step was to clean off and depress the piston back to its original position. To do that, we used some vice grips, which I know are controversial on this channel. By depressing the piston, we are forcing the brake fluid back through the lines and into the reservoir, which is usually near the firewall. We used a metal file to flatten the surface, and we wanted it to be clean, but we made sure not to damage the rubber boots while doing this because that would be bad. Also, here is a comparison between the old brake pad that we just took off and then the new one that we're about to put on. And then this little nib that you see here is actually from the brake pad sensor, this one that I'm pointing at. That is from that sensor part that we took off, so it was totally broken and we wouldn't be able to reattach it. We then applied lubricant to the connecting surfaces on the caliper carrier so that we could attach the pad retainers and they would stay on nicely. Once we had all of that clean and ready to go with the lubricant, we put the pad retainers back on each side. We made sure that they fit nicely. I think usually when you redo brakes, you usually get new pad retainers, but we did not. And then we just slid the new brake pads into place and popped them in, and all was good to go. Now all that was left to do was to reassemble everything, get the wheel back on, get it all good to go. So to do that, we first reattached the caliper carrier and then we attached the caliper. Once all of that was done, it was time to put the wheel back on. So since you all saw me struggling the other day trying to put my wheel on, let's imagine how this would go for me. Clearly not well, so I learned a little trick and I'm very excited to try it. I've got this lined up so there's one of these studs at the top, and now I'm going to line the wheel up so that there's one at the top. I'm going to kind of shimmy it in. Okay, shimmying, shimmying. And I want this to be at the top. Hold on, let me just go like this. Okay, that looks centered. Now I'm gonna pop this little piece of wood here. I'm gonna get a shovel. I'm going to use some leverage. Oh, okay. I don't know if I remember all the steps. Okay.
You got it.
And I'm gonna go like this. Oh, there we go. I see it. There we go. Boom. Woo!
That's better. Jeez.
Okay.
Okay, so try one on the bottom there.
One. It's stuck.
Yeah.
Is it just not straight?
Let me feel it. Yeah, it's just the threads are so rusted, eh? Wow.
Really?
It don't even feel good. So you know what? Let's take this off. We're going to clean these things up.
Okay.
Instead of doing damage.
So basically what was happening here is I was trying to put on the new lug nuts, but I was having extreme difficulty. So then Dante went ahead and tried, and he decided that the threads were actually too rusted. So we went ahead and cleaned them up with the wire wheel, and then we put some lubricating oil, and then we were able to get the lug nuts on much, much better than before. So I actually don't have a finished clip of what that wheel looked like with all the lug nuts on, but you can obviously imagine what it looked like. It was all good to go. Then we started out on the other rear wheel, and we ran into some major problems that I actually didn't get to film, so I'm going to fill you in while this clip is running. Once we had taken off the wheel, the caliper, and the caliper carrier, and also removed that brake pad sensor, we got to the point where we wanted to depress the piston. We were doing the exact same way we had done on the first side that I showed you all the steps to. But unfortunately, the piston would not depress, and we determined that it was actually seized, which was devastating in the moment. It was really unfortunate because we did not have any of the parts that we needed to fix that, and obviously that takes a lot more work and a lot more money, and it just was not the job that we were intending to do that day. We ordered all of the parts that we needed, but at this point, I was in summer school and I had boatloads of university level chemistry to do, so unfortunately I wasn't able to help out when the parts arrived, but my dad headed back over to the Last Chance garage with Dante's help, and they put it all back together and everything looked good. So this is them doing all that. They replaced the piston. I don't know the full details, but it all worked out in the end, except, of course, there is some bad news that is totally unrelated, but I will show you those suspenseful clips in just a moment. Don't worry. Hi everyone, I wanted wanted to give you a little installment on the Range Rover series with all of our little problems with it. Right now we are driving from my house near Windsor to Toronto, which is about a 4-hour drive. We just got on the road, and lately we've been having problems with our suspension. We've been getting a suspension warning on the car, and the little area I will show you that we can change our suspension on has been telling us like we need to lower it or something, or we need to raise it, whatever it's telling us at the time, and then it starts flashing red. And so I don't know, but right now the road is the car is clearly like bouncing, like the suspension is clearly like wobbly. So I'll keep you updated. Okay everybody, new installment. It just said suspension will raise when system cooled. I don't know if it will come back on. Oh, the little thing went. There was a little car with a down arrow. Yeah. Weird.
It's going down.
Is it lowering? I think it's lowering. Oh. What? That's crazy. Also, we know our brake pad thing is because we took out the brake pad sensor, and we know our check engine light, and I don't even know what the little exclamation marks were. Okay, I hope you can hear me in this wind, but I wanted to give you a bit of an update. We were driving, and it ended up giving us a red flashing exclamation mark triangle, and I was reading the manual, and that means that it's very serious and that you need to take immediate action when it's red. And basically it said suspension fault, do not drive over 50 kilometers an hour. So we were just pulling off the highway anyways, so it was perfect timing. I mean, it's not perfect timing, but best timing it could be. We were in the middle of the highway, and so we pulled off and we got out of the car, and look how low it is. It's so insanely low. Like, I've never seen this. I tried to get out of the car and I fell because I took a video earlier to show, but it's usually like high, like it's truck height, like, you know, it's usually high, and it's like fully ground level. Like, it's so low. So there is a big suspension issue, and we are in London, which is halfway to Toronto. So we have about a 2-hour, 2.5 drive, 2.5. Oh my God, you guys have to see this first of all. Okay. Anyway, sorry. So, basically, I wish you could have seen that. It went behind me, but I was zoomed in wrong. Anyways, so basically, we have about a 2.5-hour drive left on the highway, obviously going more than 50 kilometers an hour. So we did call CAA, and we are going to get it towed, not to Toronto, somewhere else, and then we have to do a bunch of other transportation, but that's for us to deal with. I just wanted to let you know what was going on. And then we're gonna deal with that at the dealership tomorrow, which is Monday. Okay, what we're gonna do right now is we just turned the car on. It's been off for a while, and we're gonna see if it raises up on its own, which it usually does, or if he can manually raise it up, if it will.
It said confirm suspension height.
Okay.
So I put it to the up position.
Are you able to? Thanks, okay. Okay, we put it to, is it moving? No. I heard something click.
It says vehicle raising in progress.
Okay, let's see. It looks like an inch higher, but I think I'm just making that up. Yeah, I'm just making that up. It's not higher. It's dinging. Okay, that's just the thing. What's it saying? Is it dinging?
I'm just going to.
Oh, okay, okay.
It says vehicle raising in progress.
Okay, you liar. Oh, it is. Hold on. Like an inch, like actually an inch. Like it barely went up. But it did go up. You guys saw that. Okay. What's it saying?
Vehicle raising in progress.
Okay, it still says that, and it's not raising.
Airbags are shot.
Okay, so I didn't realize that air suspension meant there was airbags, but obviously that makes perfect sense. So, anyways, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave here. We're gonna drive somewhere slower than 50 kilometers an hour. No need to worry. And then we're gonna get it towed, but we're not gonna be able to get it towed for many, many hours. So we gotta do something in the meantime. It just said again, suspension will raise when system cooled, but it had enough time to cool. Like, it was off for a long time. So, I mean, I guess technically I don't know, but yeah. Oh, there. Oh, vehicle raising in progress. Oh, I feel something happening in the front here. Little zzz.
I think it's trying to, it just can't.
Yeah. Wowee. I forgot to mention that when we were driving earlier, before we got any of these warnings, we had the normal suspension warning. I mean, still not normal, but the one we've had for I think like a day or two now. And it was super crazy bouncy. Like okay, well that was a speed bump, but like you could tell, like we could both easily tell it's like crazy, like every little bump, it was like shaking, like bump, bump, bump. So it was very noticeable that something was wrong with the suspension because every little bump was crazy. And it just did it again. It wasn't too bad. I mean, right now we're going over actual bumps, but when we were on the road just a minute ago, it was again crazy. So just want to let you know. After driving, you can tell it is higher. There is a little gap, but it's still not the normal height. Like that's still low. But it is just a little bit higher. Like you can see the full tires now. He just mentioned, I didn't notice, but the back is up and the front is not. So you can see that one a little more just because this is up more. But that does make total sense. But it is noticeably higher because before this was covering part of the tire, like from the angle. Okay guys, it's now almost 9:10. You can see the moon, it's super bright, and the sunset. The tow truck is finally here, and we are going to be on our way, but we still have about 2.5 hours of driving to do to get to one of our destinations, and then I need to go somewhere different, so I still need to go another hour backwards. We're gonna pass it, but I can't stop there. Hey everybody, wish us luck. Hey everybody, it's 11:37 and we just got to the dealership in Ajax. Hey guys, it has been a long while, several weeks since those clips were filmed, and I'm kind of here to fill you in on the rest of what happened. So we ended up getting the car towed to a dealership in Ajax, like I said, which is about an hour and a half away from Toronto. We found out that there was a leak in the driver's side airbag, and so that's why the suspension wasn't working. Basically, the airbag would fill, but then it would start leaking right away and fall back down, so it wasn't able to stay up at a height that it needed to be able to go highway speeds. After speaking to the dealership, my dad decided it would be best to order the parts himself, so we actually ordered from Rimmer Bros, which is our first order from any of these companies that we've talked about. He decided it was best to replace both of the front airbags, so he purchased the front strut and air spring assemblies for both sides. And he also decided, rather than just getting the airbags and attaching them to the existing struts we already have, he just got the whole assembly together, like I said, so that we wouldn't have to mess with all of that. He ordered OEM parts rather than Land Rover brand parts just because it was less expensive. He also got both rear brake pad sensors, which were those little wires that we took off. He got new ones so that we can replace those, and he also got running boards for both sides of the car because ours are totally rusting out. The order took less than a week to get here. He paid shipping and handling and some tax, but he didn't have to pay any duties, although there were some small clearance fees. Now that we have all the parts, it's time for us to decide if we are going to get hands-on with the Range Rover and do it ourselves and put all these parts together, or if we're just going to take it somewhere. It basically matters on how much time it takes because we do need to drive this car sooner than later, and also it is a big deal. I mean, working on the Range Rover is a lot different than working on my Triumph, of course. You guys let me know if you think it's a good idea or if it's a terrible idea for us to be messing with it. If you guys are interested in seeing us doing that, I am more than happy to film it if we are the ones who end up working on it. I think it will be interesting, but you guys let me know what your thoughts are. Those are all the updates I have for now, but I will see you guys next week. Bye!